Welcome to 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. This is an episode that you will be excited to listen to and, dare I say, share without our encouragement. You can still give us 5 stars and do all the steps that we encourage you to do, but this is going to be fun. Daren Millard along with John Shannon. Before we get into some of the happenings at the end of the schedule before the Olympic break, Darryl Sittler is going to join us today.
Well, we're the day before the 50th anniversary of Darryl Sittler's 10 points, 6 goals, 4 assists against the Boston Bruins, February 7th of 1976. Where were you, Daren?
I was attending King George School in grade 1 with Mrs. Penno.
You were not
battle
in
through an early life romance.
You were not in grade 1.
I was.
That is
with Mrs. Penno, 3 doors down from my house. Again, navigating a love triangle with my twin brother, battling over the sassy Carla.
I was there.
Well, that's a lot different.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people listening weren't alive when this happened.
I know.
And the amazing thing, and you'll bring it up with Darryl, like there's been some pretty good hockey players who have rolled through the National Hockey League since Darryl Sittler did this, and none of them came close to double digits. Knocked on the door, but didn't threaten it.
It was a night of skill, a night of puck luck, a night of bad goaltending, and it was. By the end of the second period, it was electric. It was electric in the building. For a Toronto Maple Leaf team that never really achieved what it was supposed to do for a myriad of reasons. I put ownership at the top of that list. But they were in a time and a place in the National Hockey League where they were just a better team every year than the Maple Leafs. But it's truly amazing. There's, Darryl Sittler, Lanny McDonald, Tiger Williams, Ian Turnbull, Mike Palmateer, Boria Salming. That is a team that in Toronto is still revered by so many people because of the entertainment value, because of the quality of play. Add Roger Nielsen to that list of people, but Roger didn't come until the following year before the Maple Leafs started to self-destruct at the turn of the decade in 1979-80.
What jumps out at me is if a team scores, let's say Vegas last night scored 4 goals and Mark Stone was in on 3 of them. That's incredible. That's a huge night to be in on 3 of the team's 4 goals. Darryl Sittler tallied either a goal or an assist on 10 of 11 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all had to come together. It wasn't. Nowadays, you think, well, if you're going to get 10 points, your team might have to score 16.
Can you imagine
to be involved in them?
Yeah, no, I know it's truly one of those records I think will be difficult to break now. And Wayne has a few of them. Glenn Hall, obviously, from a goaltender's perspective, with 502 consecutive games, has one. And I think this one that has lasted 50 years now will be something that our grandkids will be talking about. And this is, I tell you what, this is an episode. You're right about not as many people being alive when it happened. I always thought that this was a discussion for people over the age of 50, over the age of 60. But some people who are Maple Leaf fans that, and there's a lot of them, we see them in every building in the league, that the lore of Sittler and the lore of the 10 points is something that I don't think will ever die.
But it wasn't at a time where there wasn't or 50s where people can't grab the footage or see what happened. That's important for what Darryl did. Is we can actually lay eyes on it.
Well, and This was in many ways the halcyon days of Hockey Night in Canada. This was, the man who really reinvented the show, Ralph Mellenby, was at the helm. And Dave Hodge was the host, and Bill Hewitt and Brad McFarland, Danny Gallivan and Dick Irvin, Jim Robson in Vancouver. This was a time when Hockey Night in Canada stood for something. So Saturday night viewing was must-see TV across the country, and that's what even made it that much more special. This was not just in Toronto. This was seen from coast to coast to coast. And it's one of the reasons why there are so many Maple Leaf fans across the country, not just in Toronto.
Big picture league stories on the way. But first, Darryl Sittler joins us on 100% Hockey, sharing stories, memories, and reminiscing about February 1976 and the 10-point night. Enjoy.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Might set a record for YouTube views or podcast downloads with this episode of 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon, chatting with the Hall of Famer, Darryl Sittler, not just about the career, but we're going to zero it in. All those games you played, and we just talk about one game, Darryl.
Well, hey, it was a big game. Hey, I don't know how many games we've played since the NHL, 12, 14,000, and it's still worth talking about. There you go.
And nobody's come close. Not Wayne, not Mario, not Sidney. Darryl Sittler.
Well, close. I mean, 8's pretty good. I mean,
is that what you when you see them? Is that what you pat them on the back and say, yeah, 8's pretty good, Wayne, keep going?
Yeah, I mean, he did it a couple times. So, but with Wayne, I told the story. You probably heard it. I remember watching the game. I was at home, and they were in Minnesota. It was an afternoon game, and he had 8 points at the end of the second period. And I'm thinking, well, better sit down and watch this thing. And Sather left him on, I think, the whole period, hoping to get another 1 or 2, and he couldn't do it. So when that didn't happen, I'm thinking, okay, we're in safe hands for a while.
The stats, they're staggering. Like 2 hat tricks in one game, 10 points. You're involved in all but 1 goal in an 11-4 victory. What are those stand +7 in the game? What do those stand out to you?
Well, back then, obviously without the internet and, the fact that it was an original 6 game in Toronto on a Saturday night, coast to coast, there was always a little bit more buzz in the city, in the building because of that. And then we were ahead at the end of the second period by a number of goals. I don't know exactly what the score was. It might have been 8-4 or something. We were all excited and in the dressing room that we were scoring so many goals and we were ahead of the Bruins. And then Stan Abodiak comes down over to me. He says, Darryl, I don't know if you know it, but you've got 7. If you get 1 more, you tie Rocket. So that's when I knew, when the players knew. We go out in the third period, I get another one, I tie him. Then I score 3 more goals. So that was the fun part of it. Again, I say I never thought the magnitude of this record would be what it is today, 50 years later. When you say I was +7, you've probably heard the story. My buddy Tiger, who's sitting here in my kitchen down here in Florida, he was -2 that night. Now, how can you be -2 in an 11-4 win? For 2 against and none for. There were 2 power play goals. So we put Tiger in the books too, part of the story.
My favorite story of that night is Dave Reese was the goalie of record for Boston, but Jerry Cheevers had just come back from the WHA. And he's sitting at the end of the bench, and every time Don Cherry turns and looks at him, he pulls the towel deeper over his head. There's no way he's going in.
Well, when you say that, I remember that morning skate because there was a buzz around the building because, Cleveland went broke and Cheevers was back, and I think that was his first game practice with the Bruins, and then they were back in Boston the next night. So understanding Bruin fans and Cherry, you kind of want to save them for the debut for the fans on the Sunday night. But at the same time, they didn't pull the goalies back then like they do now. Now if a goal goalie gets one or two, three soft ones in right at the beginning, he's out of there, and they might put him back in. So that didn't happen as much. But yeah, that was all part of the mystique of the story that Cheevers was sitting on the bench and didn't play.
Did you have a favorite play, goal from the 10 points?
Well, there's one goal when you look at the highlights. I was coming down, and I don't know how he scored it, but I ended up behind the net, and my, back went up against the boards and jumped high, and all the guys piled in on me. I'm not exactly sure if that was the 8th goal or the 9th goal, but the last goal, I mean, it was a fluke. I was behind the net. I was trying to pass the puck out to Errol Thompson. Brad Park was moving across, put his skate out. Reese was going across, and you guys know, you watch the game long enough that some nights the puck has eyes and it's finds its way in the net, and then other nights, I mean, I've had other games where I've had 10, 12 shots in a game and maybe scored 1 goal. That night I had 10 shots and 6 of them went in. So it was just one of those magical nights that for all of us, we like to share.
You remember what you did after the game? I mean,
Totally.
10 points would be a celebration, wouldn't it?
Well, totally. You probably hear the story. And so I was on Hockey Night in Canada afterwards, and they were asking me if I did anything different. And I mentioned that I bought some Swiss Chalet that day for lunch, which was kind of unusual because normally I'd go home and make my own meal, or Wendy would have it. And then when I mentioned that, Swiss Chalet jumped on the bandwagon, which is great. Send me $500 worth of gift certificates. I say you could buy a lot of chicken back then for $500. But after the game, most of us lived out in Mississauga. We just went to Bobby Rubino's rib house and had a bite to eat, maybe 1 beer, because we played the next day against Minnesota, which was unusual to have back-to-back home games in Toronto, Saturday, Sunday. And I think that game, I don't know if you guys could look up the score, like it was a low-scoring game, like 1 or 2-0. I think we won by. So, yeah, we didn't celebrate a lot.
Who else had big nights that night? You mentioned Tiger, and I'm not going to chirp him. I'm not, even in Vegas, I'm not far enough away from you in Florida to chirp Tiger. But who else had a big night?
I think Borey had 5 or 6 points. Earl Thompson had 5, 6 points. Lanny had 4, I know. So they one of the trivia questions people have is who was the guy that scored the goal that wasn't in on the 10 points, and that was George Ferguson, who scored the goal. So, I've talked, a little bit before because of the celebration on the 27th the Leafs had for myself and my teammates, but all these years, I had the score sheet and I looked at it closely because it was the 50th anniversary. I said to myself, okay, well, who did the 9th point how to break the record? How did that happen, or who assisted on it? And when I looked at it, like it was only like a month ago, I realized that Rocket Richard were number 9 and I were number 27. And to beat his record, it was at 9:27 of the third period. Now, what are the chances of that ever happening? So there's a lot of cool stories within the story of the 10-point game that I think the fans like. I know myself as a player appreciate and like that those things happen, So.
Well, it also leads me to a conversation. My wife, Jen, who worked for the Maple Leafs, and she was with Nancy Jilks last weekend, and they were exchanging stories about being with you. And Nancy brought up the fact that you discovered Wendy's old ticket from that night. Can you walk us through that? Because this makes the hair on my back stand up.
Well, me too, a little bit. So when Wendy passed away, I lived over in East Amherst, New York, and I was going through things, obviously, and I had no idea, but she had kept her 2 tickets from that night and a program, which is seen, right? And so I took those tickets and I framed them and put them away, so to speak. And they were the whole ticket intact. Normally back then you'd rip your ticket stub in half, and that's what the fan got, right? But Wendy had her home because she went in the back door, I guess. But anyway, fast forward all these years, and it was this summer when the Leafs were going to honor me, and we were looking at thing. We did the collaboration of clothing with OVO, and my grandson Luke, who's 21, he's into different design and those sorts of things. So I just happened to look at the tickets closely, and she's in section 50, the 50th anniversary. Her seats are 13 and 14. What are the chances of that? Adds up to 27. It's February the 7th. Month 27, and the price of the ticket was $10. So every number matched the 50th anniversary. So it was cool. Now everybody's surprised and and astounded that there was a ticket for $10 to watch the Leafs play back there. But that was the way it was. So I'm proud that came up. And, I'm a believer. If you look for the signs and things are out there, Wendy was a part of that. As you guys know, when I put my banner up, I asked the Leafs if they would honor her and myself to put her name on it. Not that it had to be big, but just so it was there, because she was a part of my life and career for 30 years. Unfortunately, she died too young at age 52. So the fact that here we are in the 50th anniversary, she's still a part of it in spirit. I can share that with you and share that with the fans. I think it's meaningful.
I will tell you, Darryl, and I've been around the Gardens starting around that time. Wendy and Ardell, we knew where Wendy and Ardell sat every Saturday night. In that section 50 in the corner, right? That was a special place. There's Wendy and Ardell, Lanny and Darryl's wife sitting there much earlier than most fans were sitting in their seats, but they were there ready to watch the game.
Well, I shared this at the press conference the other day, and it's very meaningful. So when Wendy and I, we made a lot of nice friends over the years, and Tiger and Brenda and Lanny and Ardell and many others. And I was always concerned, seriously, when Wendy passed and I met somebody new in my life, how those relationships would continue on or develop. And I was fortunate to be married to Wendy for 30 years. I met my wife, Luba, shortly after that. We've been married 21, and she's as important in Tiger and Brenda's life and Lanny and Ardell's and some of my other friends as Wendy. And I can sit here like I'm talking to you and sharing this with you about Wendy, and Luba's all fine with it. She understands all that. So there's a bigger picture for all of us in this thing. I believe, friendships, you don't take them for granted. You don't take them lightly, and it's a two-way street. It has to be give and take on both sides, and you got to go and make the effort to spend those times together. And if I look at that 70 team, with guys like Boria and obviously Patty Boutette and a number of them, we're all very close. We had a team with a lot of character. We didn't win the cup. We were close. Canadians were too strong at that period of time, unfortunately. But we all still feel and have a lot of respect for each other, and when we get some time together. And that was important for me when the Leafs said they would like to honor me, that they would invite the players who were still alive play in that game. And then on the Jumbotron before, recognize the players who had since passed away. And I think out of the 19 guys, there's only 11 of us or 12 of us that are alive. So you think in 50 years how things can change. So it was a very meaningful night for all of us to be a part of. I think the fans appreciated it. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment did it right, and I was proud to be a part of it and share it with everybody else and my family. I don't know if you guys saw the clip when we went in the dressing room before with my grandson Sawyer and Freddie. They did the starting lineup, and they were as pumped as everybody. To me, that was the highlight of the night for me. So it's funny.
I was going to ask you how good you thought your team was, but then when you look at, you as you started to get better, when Red Kelly was the coach, it was the Philadelphia Flyers were the toughest team and the best team and the Stanley Cup champion, and then you went through the Montreal, and then you had to face the Islanders, and I would presume the Islander series in '78 would be the highlight of your Maple Leaf career as a team?
Definitely. The Islanders, as you know, were expected to win the Cup that year. We were the underdog to take them to 7 games. To win the game in the Island, that was a tough series, man. Physically tough. And then Lanny, obviously, to score the overtime goal for Leaf fans was a highlight. Now, hey, we were disappointed to lose out in the next round, but that team was as close as any team to possibly win the Stanley Cup. We were just a little short because of the depth of the other clubs.
A lot more to dig into with Darryl Sittler, reminiscing 50 years after his 10-point night. It's Millard and Shannon on 100% Hockey. We'll be back with more right after this.
Car shopping should be exciting, not exhausting. That's where Car Gurus comes in. They have advanced search tools, unbiased deal ratings, and price history, so you know a great deal when you see one. It's no wonder that Car Gurus is the #1 rated car shopping app in Canada. When you're car shopping on your phone, it shouldn't be a maze. You need to see all the information. With the Car Gurus app, you can. powerful search tools that you see deal ratings, price history, and dealer reviews on listings all in one place. And you can turn on real-time price drop alerts so you never miss a great deal. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent, hassle-free buying process. Buy your next car today at cargurus.ca. Make sure your deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.ca. cargurus.ca.
Darryl, did you use the same stick for all 10 points?
Well, that was a question I was asked again to me. So when I was getting ready for a game, I, believe it or not, I always had 5 sticks beside me. I don't know if it was a superstition, but I always had 5 sticks. So I don't know how many sticks I used that night. There is one that surfaced with a gentleman who's, he's a big collector. And I had signed it after the fact, 10-point game. He thinks it's one of the sticks I used. And nowadays, I guess with photos and, high-tech stuff, you can try to match that up. When somebody asks me, I can't honestly say I know that for sure. So, So it's, we can talk a little bit about the jersey. Think of this. So we wore the same jersey for the 40 home games or 38 home games or whatever we had back then. If you ripped it, the trainers just stitched it up. Yeah. And at the end of the season, never even entered my headspace to say, geez, that'd be nice to keep that jersey. And Harold Ballard, we all know how he is. At some point, I guess he gave it to somebody for whatever reasons. Nobody know who. They're still trying to find out. But then it resurfaced about 10 years ago where a fellow in New Jersey had bought an allotment. He bought 150 jerseys, allotment. Didn't know what he was getting. And he starts to go through it. And there's my 70s jersey, 27 on it. And now he looks and he starts to match it up. But one of the critical things on that jersey to match it up, I'd ripped the stem on the jersey. And when the trainer showed it on, he showed it a little bit crooked, right? So that was a really good match, And then there was a couple like a thread on the C and some other marks and stuff like that. So the fact that it was out there 10 years ago and then it resurfaced 6 months ago in an auction in Houston, Gray Flannel Auctions, and one of the reporters in Toronto had mentioned it to me, just sent me a note, and I knew 2 of my friends had been kind of following it. We're hoping to maybe have the opportunity, Joey Arfin and Mark Shapiro, and they ended up getting it and buying it. They paid a couple $100,000, but they wanted to do
Hold on. How much?
200,000. That was more than I made that season. but when you think of it, for me, again, when I talk about the 10-point night, the 50th anniversary, these things all coming together, they're cool stories within the story. So the fact that they get it here, and then I said to MLSE, and I said, that jersey's here. I said, I'd love to wear it. I think the fans would like it. I would like to wear it, my teammates to see it. Went into the dressing room in the morning of, and it was nice. They presented me with the Bickle Award, but I had the jersey, and I was showing the current guys. Nowadays they change the jersey sometimes every period to be called game used jerseys, so to speak. So they were kind of intrigued by it all. So all those sort of things obviously make it a nice story. Now, the 2 guys that bought it, Joey Arfin and Mark Shapiro, I was their childhood idol. They remember watching that game. They were 7 or 12 years old at the time. So it made them feel good to bring it back, not only for Leaf fans, but for me to bring it back to Canada where it belongs. So where it's going to go next, I don't know, but it was still a part of this whole story. On Saturday, the Leafs are having a dinner in the hot stove. It's kind of a high-end thing, intimate dinner. And I'll have that jersey there again to share with the people who are there that night.
So so February 7th, 2026, there will be a private party for you and some friends about the anniversary. Well,
the MLSE, they've been advertising it. If you go on their site, it pops up on my Instagram all the time. There's tickets for sales. It's not cheap, but it's going to be an intimate thing. They're talking about maybe bringing my banner down, standing beside it, getting your picture, having a nice steak dinner, glass of wine. And then Christine Simpson's, she's going to be there. She's going to be interviewing me. We'll be telling a few stories and make it a nice special night.
That's fantastic. Well, hopefully they don't charge you for a ticket.
Well, you know what? What's kind of cool about all this that's happening? We know it's the Olympic year, and I'm sure we were looking at maybe having something closer. Maybe there was going to be a game on February the 7th, but there's no NHL games, as you guys know. The fact that it ended up being on the 27th, again, talking numbers and matching stuff like that, and the fact that they're having it actually on that date. There's nothing else in the building that night. It makes it a special thing. I'm in Florida. I'm flying back tomorrow, and I look forward to being a part of that whole thing.
Who did you play with the night that you set the record?
I played. That's another story within the story. So Harold Ballard, as we all know, he could be a little controversial and create the drama. So that week in the paper, I think it was the Thursday paper, and you want to look it up. There was an article and headlines, if only he could find a center to play with Lanny McDonald and Errol Thompson. And I was the guy that was kind of with them before. And he was giving me a shot. I guess I wasn't playing well. And Red Kelly had come to Lanny and I and Errol, and Lanny insisted, he said, leave us together. We're a good line, And, Red being Red did that. And then here you are, 11-4 and 10 points later. So.
Well, your pal Harold, he could grab a headline any day he wanted, Darryl. That was one of the before social media. I mean, could you imagine Harold Ballard in the age of social media, what he would do?
I couldn't believe what he did. I don't know if you watched the documentary on him a while back. I mean, it was crazy, some of the footage. I remember sitting there being interviewed for 4 hours telling Jason Priestley, who interviewed me and produced it, some of the stories kind of behind the scenes stuff that happened, and he was just shaking his head. And when I say this, in all fairness, Tiger, who's here with me today, Tiger loved Harold Ballard. He was his buddy. Tiger would shoot a bear somewhere out, whatever, and bring the bear skin in, and Harold would have it in his apartment up there. And he's got wonderful memories. And he said that in the documentary of Harold, but some of us know Harold a little differently. And when I say some nice things. So that tea service that Mr. Ballard gave Wendy and I, it was 125 years old then. It's an heirloom that we still have. It was to commemorate the 50th anniversary. And then when I scored the overtime goal in the Canada Cup, September 15th, 76, he had the receptionist at Maple Leaf Gardens answer the phone, the home of Darryl Sittler. So lots of good memories with Harold. His heart was in the right place at times. My whole thing, and I don't want to get into it too much, was when he brought Punch Imlach back.
Yeah.
And then Punch and I didn't see eye to eye. I was the vice president of players union, no trade captain, popular guy. And then there was a battle, and unfortunately it ended the way it ended. But
well, not to dig too deep, I was actually working on that show the night that you gave Dave Hodge a letter to read on the air when you decided you didn't want to be captain anymore.
That was a very emotional night for me. I have that jersey, actually. The trainer at the end of the season gave it to me. So it's a special jersey, not one that I wasn't a proud moment for me. I didn't do it as a spoiled little brat. I did it because I just thought it was the right thing to do. And Punch didn't respect me as a player, as a captain, or as a person. So I just wanted to go out there and play hockey, do my job, what I was paid to do, and forget all the other stuff off the ice. The thing that made me feel proud about, not that I expected it, but when they asked other players to wear the C, none of them said they wanted it. They said, Darryl's still our captain. He doesn't have the C on. So that was pretty meaningful for me too.
So I was going to ask you this question. What did it mean to be the captain of the Maple Leafs, particularly following George Armstrong?
Well, I got there in 70 as a young, first round draft pick. So a number of players on that team had won the Cup in 67. So I was in awe and admiration and respect for those guys. Bobby Bond was on the team, George Armstrong, Davey Keon, Ronnie Ellis. Wonderful people and good teammates. And I learned a lot through them, And then Davey was the captain, and I saw how Ballard treated Davey. The World Hockey came along, and Ballard, verbally and publicly, belittled Dave Keon and all that sort of stuff. And when they asked me to be the captain, first of all, what happened, Jim Gregory, Ronnie Ellis was the next guy in line. He had won the Cup, very well respected. And when they went to Ronnie about being the captain. He said, no. He said, that's a great honor, but I think Darryl should be the captain. And I'll never forget Ronnie saying that, But I remember the press conference I had. It was in the old hot stove lounge there. And the media asked me what it was like. And obviously it's a great honor, the respect, and the responsibilities that come with it. But at the same time, I made a comment to say, someday I could be like Dave Keon. He won the Conn Smythe. He was, the franchise, so to speak. And now he's kind of being run out of town, or had been run out of town because of Ballard. And I don't think Mr. Ballard liked that comment, but it was a fair comment. It was a true comment. And then as we went through my career, obviously, those things had happened to me, and I seen it happen to other guys after me. And it's unfortunate, but if I look truthfully at it all, like, we didn't have any mentors to kind of get us through that. When you had a press conference and the mics and everything was hot and going, you had to stand on your own 2 feet and think it out and try to make the right decisions. Not easy stuff under tough emotions, but I think all of that stuff, looking back, has helped me to be kind of the person I am after my career was over. And you can learn by a lot of those experiences. And I say this to my kids, and I say it to other people. Like, I've always tried to believe to do the right things for the right reasons, And if you can do that, you're not going to go too far wrong, because you are who you are. You're truthful to yourself. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, hey, that's the way to. But you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm doing the right things for the right reasons. And that's when I took that C off, or when Imlach challenged me. I'll give you an example with him. I was the vice president of the Players Union. He says captains of our team shouldn't be a vice president of the Players Union. It's conflict of interest. Alan Eagleson was my agent. He said, Alan Eagleson says it's going to be white. He says, I'm going to say it's black, Darryl. You're going to be caught in the middle, so get rid of Eagleson. And then he says, I'm going to test your no-trade contract. And so all those things in my first meeting with him showed me that, hey, this thing is going to be a difficult challenge. And now you just have to face each one at a time. You remember John Showdown in the National Hockey League.
Sure.
One thing that we had a great partnership with the ownerships back then, and both benefited from it. Well, Imlach didn't believe in Showdown. And my first meeting with him was, he says, it was the morning of Showdown. It's going to be Friday afternoon up in Markham. And he calls me in the office, my first meeting. He says, Darryl, I read in the paper this morning you're going to go to Showdown. I said, yeah. He says, well, I'm the general manager. I decide. Goes to that. Who do you think you are? He says, what are the players on my hockey club going to think if I just let you do that, what you want to do? And I said, well, what are the players going to think if I don't do it? We've got an agreement between the Players Union. We've done it. I've been in Showdown before. I think I have the right to go. So I go up there the Friday afternoon, and we're taking the team pictures. It's 3:45. I remember it clearly. Out at center ice, and the trainer comes running along the boards, and he comes center ice. He says, Darryl, Eagleson's on the phone. He's got to talk to you. So I leave the team picture, go to the payphone back then, get on it. Al says, Darryl, I'm in the Players Association office. We were just issued a writ. The Maple Leafs are going to sue you and Mike Palmatier if you participate in Showdown. A judge is going to hear it at 4:30 this afternoon. That's 45 minutes later. He said, do you want me to go? I said, yeah, for sure. The judge looks at it, the Toronto courthouse, and he says, this is ridiculous. We have every right to participate. But then the story started to grow. It was my battle against his battle. And unfortunately, but anyway, that's all.
Did you score?
Hey?
Did you win the showdown?
I don't know if I won it or not, but the one year I was second, I remember beating Danny Grant. I won $5 or $10,000. You thought you were rich by doing that. But those were all fun things for the fans. And obviously you see where the skills competition has grown from there. But we were kind of the guys that, we're the pioneers of it all. And it was
precursor to the shootout, right, Darryl?
Pardon me?
Precursor to the shootout, today's shootout.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anyway, all good stuff.
So I'm just curious, like 50 years now with this record, and you have done so many interviews like this about it. Is there one question that hasn't been asked? Is there one thing that you haven't? Because I say this with a tremendous amount of respect. You have been so consistent with your storytelling over those years that it almost comes out like, okay, I'll tell it again. And as we said a couple times, as I said at the press conference, because is there an angle that we don't know about the 50th anniversary, about the 10 points that has been forgotten that only you know and you've kept a secret?
Well, it's not a secret, but I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and you were mentioning about where is the video or the tape from that game,
Right.
And I tell the story, and I tell it humbly and disappointingly. So Hockey Night in Canada gave me the reel, right? And I had it from that point on. And I always remember having it in my office, put away. And then I get traded and move around, not to make excuses, just the way it happened. So Wendy had passed away. I moved from Toronto, all my stuff, from Buffalo to Toronto. And at that time, I had the real Pat McElhaney, who was with Molstar, put it on VHS tape, right?
Yeah.
It was like late, just after Wendy died in 2001, right around then, okay? And I remember watching it on a VSH tape, the whole game. That was the first time since 76 that I did it. So I don't think anything of it. And, back then you had all sorts of VHS tapes. That's what we did back then. Everybody had freaking stacks of them. And then, I don't know, it was one of the anniversaries. I was asked about it, and I started to go look for it, thinking where I thought it was, and I couldn't freaking find it.
Yeah.
Then I'm thinking, was it at the cottage? I moved. There's boxes. I went through boxes at 100 of VHSs, and I kept thinking it's going to resurface somewhere because I wouldn't have given it away to anybody. And I don't know where it is today. When I say this, was it left in a machine and the machine was thrown out? I don't know. It makes me disappointed that I can't see it. The fans can't see it. And somewhere in my heart, I still believe it might resurface. Like, I've got my summer home. I got stuff different places. And when I was cleaning things out, I thought, okay, it's going to find it. But it hasn't. But Tiger says he's got it. I just heard him in the back. I got it.
Yeah. That means David's going to make some money off of it. That's what
-2, he doesn't want anybody to see it, right?
-2,
Did you ever get? Do you get any blowback from Montreal fans for breaking Richard's record?
No, I don't. No, you know what? When I say this, and Leaf fans sometimes, might be a little disappointed. Jean Beliveau was my childhood idol, right?
Yeah.
And Jean Beliveau, I say this, when I was a kid, Santa Claus brought me a number 4 Canadiens jersey, and I'd wear that everywhere. So now I'm 20 years old with the Leafs. I'm in the Montreal Forum, and I look up and I'm facing off against Jean Beliveau. Magical. You talk about goosebumps, magical moment, right? He was 41, I was 20. And then what happened? I retire in 85. I get elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 89. And I get to meet Jean Beliveau at some of the NHL Hall of Fame events at a golf tournament. And I still get that little boy, admiration feeling that you got meeting your idol. And I share this with you. When Wendy passed away, I was living in East Amherst, New York. It was the morning of her funeral. And my phone rang at my house. And I picked it up. I remember it was 10:30. And Darryl, it's Mr. Jean Beliveau. I want you to know I'm thinking of you on your most difficult day of your life, right? And Jean Beliveau went and found my number through somebody to share that message with me. So still to this day, you go to my home, Terry Fox's picture is there. He's my hero, Jean Beliveau, Montreal Canadian is there. So when you ask me about Habs fan being disappointed, the respect I have for Habs fan, they are okay to say, hey, listen, I admire you. You're a Maple Leaf, but I admire you as a person and as a player, even though you were a Maple Leaf. And to me, that's the measurement of a good hockey fan or a good person. No different than with me with Jean Beliveau. So those are all good, feel-good stories. One of the things I always say, like, I look at a guy like Terry Fox. I was fortunate to meet him. I watched it. He had no idea. I was his hero, as a kid growing up, and he wanted to meet me. So I share these with people. Like, you never know when you can make a difference in somebody's life, right? And Jean Beliveau made a difference in my life as a kid, as an adult. And, have your eyes and your ears open and your heart and your feelings open for that, because it's a cool thing. So
I will say, listen, Darryl, I will say the marathon of life, marathon of hope, does not get the notoriety it got without you at Nathan Phillips Square. And you know that. You won't admit it, but you know that. That was the turning point. That was the turning point of Terry Fox's run across the country.
So when you say that, and you might have heard the story before, so I was at my summer home and I picked up a Toronto newspaper and I saw this Canadian guy, curly hair, dipped his leg in it, running 26 miles on one leg. I said, 26 miles a day on one? This is ridiculous, right? And when he went through the Maritime provinces and through Quebec, he didn't get a lot of exposure, and I looked for times. But then how things work in your life. When he arrived at the Ontario-Quebec border, the president of the Cancer Society from Ontario met him there. Said, Terry, when you're coming through, is there anything we can do for you? Show our appreciation. And he asked for maybe the opportunity to meet me and to meet Bobby Orr, because as a kid growing up in Port LaQuin, an athlete. So when they called me, he said, do you want to meet Terry Fox? I said, boy, and it was kind of magical. I was driving down from the cottage, just knowing I was going to meet him. I think, what could I do for him? And I played in the All-Star game that year, and it was 1980. And I went home and I grabbed my All-Star jersey, put it in a brown paper bag, didn't say anything to anybody. He said he's just finished 13 miles. He's up in his hotel room in Yorkville. So I go in there, and I got my Terry Fox shirt on, and I open the door, and I'll always remember it vividly. He's down tying his lace up, and I go, hey, anybody like to go for a run? And I see this big smile come up, with his curly hair, and then we kind of met. His brother and sisters were there and some other people. We go down out of the hotel, and I didn't realize the magnitude it was going to happen of it. We go down University Avenue, and the streets were lined with people cheering, people crying, and I didn't want to be the show. It was Terry. So I stood back and I watched him run, and we went to Nathan Phillips Square. And again, it was bigger than I ever expected, like 12, 15,000, whatever it held. And I gave him that jersey, right, as a gift from me. But that, like you said, John, that moment and meeting, became national news, And then I got to know Terry Fox from that day forward. I would keep in touch with him. And when his run ended up near Thunder Bay, it was, I think, Labor Day weekend, the Cancer Return. We did a marathon of hope across CTV or one of the national networks. And then Terry was taking chemo out in BC. And when the team went into Vancouver, and Tiger and these guys were there, I remember inviting him to the dressing room. And he came there. He was very pale looking and fragile looking. But Terry Fox, in my mind, the things that stick out most about him that we all can learn from is humility. He was a humble guy. He wasn't doing it for his ego and all this other stuff. He was doing it to try to make a difference in people's lives, right? So Terry Fox is my hero, and he is today. That Marathon of Hope has raised, they just passed $1 billion. And yeah, it takes a lot of sponsorships and a lot of things, to make it all happen. But one of the cool things for me, being a part and knowing Terry, and my grandkids are in Burlington, and all these schools have the Terry Fox run every September. My grandkids didn't know anything of the story, and they go to school and they show the video, and they come home to my daughter Ashley, hey, Papa knew Terry Fox, Pop. And now to this day, they're all running. They have Wendy's name on their jersey or their T-shirt. So those things are lasting. That's all Canadiana stuff. To me, he was one of the greatest Canadians ever for what he did in such a short period of time. And we can all learn from a Terry Fox and obviously continue to give him the admiration he deserves.
I got one more question, not related to Terry Fox or Jean Beliveau, but I remember watching this as a teenager, the Ranger Maple Leaf playoff series. And you've got to be 20 or 21 years old. And Vic Hadfield, who lives in my neighborhood over here, Vic Hadfield throws Jacques Plante's or Bernie Perrant's mask into the crowd.
Bernie Perrant, yeah.
And then King Clancy's running through the crowd trying to find the mask.
Yeah, no. So that story, I shattered my wrist that year. That was my first year, and I was missed 3 months, but then I was ready back for the playoffs. So I was a rookie, and third or fourth liner back then. And when that brawl broke out, I just happened to be with Tim Horton, who was with him, and Tim Horton was like 42 or 43 at the time, right?
Yeah. And
that big brawl was happening. And, everybody was on the ice. And I wanted to go. Jimmy Harrison was actually fighting. And I wanted, as a robust 20-year-old, to go in and help Horton. And true story, Tim Horton grabs me by the, how your father used to squeeze your arm? And he goes, where do you think you're going? I go, nowhere, eh? And I'll always remember that vividly. Obviously, I remember King going around, grabbing, getting the mask back. But those were cool stories back then. The thing that was kind of cool with me too, like Jacques Plante was on our team helping Bernie, and Jacques took a liking to me for some reason. I remember him in the dressing room knitting his undershirts and all that sort of stuff. And for those fans who are out there, there's a game of cribbage, eh? Like we always play cribbage at home. It's a kind of a card game, and if you can get a 29-hand in cribbage, it's like getting not quite a 10-point game, but a hole-in-one in golf. That doesn't happen very often. So I'm playing cards with Jacques Plante on the plane to Minnesota, and I cut the 5 to match the jack or whatever it was. And he said, "Hey, you got a 29-hand." Unbelievable. I wished I would have kept those cards, had him sign it and all those sorts of things. But it's funny how stories like that you remember that happened to you. So I've been a lucky guy. 29-hand, 10-point night, hole-in-one. Tiger sitting on the couch here doing his dip,
Can you call him over?
Yeah, come on, get David over.
Come on over here. He might charge you guys for this.
Oh, don't worry, we're used to that.
Getting an invoice here. Sit down.
You guys sit there together if you can.
Tell him to take the toothpick out of his mouth.
Hello, David.
Shannon,
what's up?
Now,
How are you?
how old are you now?
I'm younger than you still.
Oh, okay, that's
He
good.
just had a birthday 2 days ago. He's 72, 27 backwards. 27 backwards. Another number.
It's all coming together. You look good, bud.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was telling Darryl before we started, I watched the Game 3 of the 82 final when you were playing for Vancouver. And I don't know how Mike Bossy actually finished the game after you finished with him.
Yeah, well, they I mean, that was a great series. And the biggest thing for me was I played junior with Brian Trottier, and him and I are blood brothers. So that was a tough series to play against because I knew if I cut his head off, we'd win for sure, but I didn't do that. So I had to pick on Bossy.
Hey, so how did you end up -2 that night?
Well, on the 10-point night?
Yeah.
Well, somebody had to take a little bit of the story away from Sittler. That's why I did that.
What was it like playing on that team?
Who did I like playing?
No, what was it like playing? Darryl and Lanny and Ian, we haven't mentioned Ian Turnbull, who was having a heck of a career in Toronto at the time. That was those were halcyon days for your group of guys. You were legends in this city.
Well, I mean, we had those 5 special guys. We had Sittler, McDonald, Turnbull, and the 2 Swedes, the first 2 Swedes,
right?
Boya and Ingy. And as a young guy, I mean, just trying to keep up to those guys in practice was a big deal because they'd always say to me on certain drills, "Keep up, kid, keep up," So they were good mentors, first-class guys. And the disappointing thing was when I got away and I went to other teams, these other teams didn't really know what league they were in. They were never at the class, unfortunately, that the Leafs were. And everything was done first class. We stayed at first class places. We charted all the time. I love Mr. Bellard, as Darryl already mentioned that, because he wanted a guy on his team, his players, that crest, he wanted you to die for it. And he knew I would. So that's how we became buddies. And he was so good to me. He was so good to me. And I just assumed as a young guy, when you get traded, the other owner's going to be the same way and the other players get. That's not the way it works at all. So I was very lucky to get 6.5 years in with the Leafs.
By the way, 299 penalty minutes that year, Tiger.
Yeah, but you got to remember back then, John, that there was bad judgment and poor eyesight with the referee. And that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. How many did you deserve? 12?
Oh.
Yeah, maybe 18.
Yeah, maybe 18.
So I got one quick story. This was supposed to be a celebration of Darryl's 10-point night, but so I'm actually working at Hockey Night in Canada. We're doing the Los Angeles Vancouver series in '82. And David, you'll remember this. We had a fire at the hotel. I think it was between games 3 and 4. With so everybody out in the parking lot except one guy. Dave Tiger Williams is on the roof of the hotel with the firefighters, trying to help them put out the fire.
Absolutely. Somebody had to do something, you know. I mean, yeah, I was in LA at, it was the Marriott, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, and the whole fire started because some guy got hammered up and lit his mattress on fire. But the thing, the only reason I did that when I jumped on the balcony and climbed on the roof that way was because I was smart enough to know, don't open the door because you might suck those flames in, right? And so I said, the safest place is up on top of the roof. So that's where I went. And then I grabbed the hose and the guy said, hey, because they, you know, it's dark. And they say, you don't have a uniform on. I said, no, it already burned up, you know. But yeah.
Those days at the Weyburn Volunteer Department, you know.
Yeah. But that's the greatest thing about playing the game, and probably in all pro sports. It's the stories, they can never take them away from you. Yeah. And they're incredible. No matter who you are, where you played. Everybody's got some great stories.
I think it's so special to be able to have this conversation with the two of you in the same room at the same time. Just if Tiger, if you can just talk about Darryl a little bit, what he means to you, and then Darryl, the same thing about David.
Well, it's very simple. Is that when you go to training camp, you're a rookie, there's somebody you look up to. Well, I had Keon and Almond and Ronnie Ellis and Eddie Shacks and Jim McKinney and Brian. I had all their hockey cards, and I had them in my hand because I wanted to get them signed up, right? Well, then, you know, I never had Darryl, but at that time, his leadership and his compassion for us on and off the ice was, I've never seen it again. And his leadership, and along with Lanny and along with Solomon, when I left there, I tried to be like them.
Darryl?
Get up. I got to sit down.
Line change.
So I keep telling him if he keeps crying, I'm going to get him a Kleenex commercial. So I'm going to give you a true story about Tiger, right? So when we drafted him, you know, the summertime, you kind of pay attention to so we get this guy, Tiger Williams from Western Canada. You look up, he's got 600 minutes in penalty. So, you know, there's a little different element to his game when he comes to training camp. So the very first training camp, I remember it vividly. I was the type of guy, I wanted to be on the ice first. That's just who I am, right? But Tiger, who had, I guess, enough respect for me, realized that, hey, he's not going to go ahead of me. So I'm walking out first day of training camp, and I look, and who's behind me? But Tiger, right? So I get out on the ice, and I'm skating around Maple Leaf Gardens. And as I'm skating around, I see Tiger, and he's standing at the doorway, not on the ice, but looking around. He's looking like, I knew what was going through. A small town, Saskatchewan. His dad was a Leaf fan. My first step on Maple Leaf Gardens ice. That's what I'm envisioning watching, right? And then I watch him a little closer. He jumps on the ice, and he skates as hard as he can over to the other side, and he hits the boards, and he freaking falls down on the ice. Then he gets up, and he goes, and he hits the other boards. I'm like, holy shit, this is the start. So then we have a scrimmage. Before the puck was even dropped, he kicked the shit out. I don't know who you kicked shit out, Tiger. Right at the first day of training camp. Now, welcome to Toronto, Tiger. So that's who he is. What we all appreciate about each other when we talk about guys with character. I mean, being a part of a team is a special thing, eh? And we know that the only way you're going to succeed if you have team guys, and each guy has a certain role on the team. Tiger knew what his role was. He never wavered from it. He knew that the Borja Salmings were going to be, taken advantage of, guys like myself. And you respect that. And then that's on the ice. Then off the ice, we all had our families and did things. And those things were important to all of us as the things being a team person on the ice. So here we are all these years later, talk about friendships. Hey, you don't take them for granted. They're here. We appreciate them. And maybe our kids can learn from our relationships. Maybe the listeners here can learn from those sorts of things. But that to me is what it's all about. It's not about goals and assists and penalty minutes all the time. It's about the whole package that makes the person, makes the story what it is today.
It is so inspiring to see you guys still hanging out together.
Yeah. Lanny was supposed to come down too, but he had to go back to Calgary and get some work done, I guess. But when we get together, it's like, even if it's 5, 6, 10 months, we get back together and you just pick it up and away you go again. Sometimes the stories get more embellished as we go, but they're all fun to tell.
It truly is amazing that here you are. It's 50 years later, and this town still has reverence for your group. It really is amazing. You are still. Heck, listen, you and Lanny could still do commercials in this country, being recognized, and that in itself, Darryl, is an amazing story.
Thank you, appreciate it. You know what? We played in the 70s. Hey, obviously the salaries and all those things are different, but I've always said, our success today and what we do away from the game, it's because of the way the game has grown, the way the fans embrace it and appreciate it. And even though we haven't played for a lot of years, they make us feel part of it, and they give us opportunities to do these different things. You talked a little bit earlier about beating Rocket Richard's record, and there was a book called The Sweater in Montreal about the jersey, And when Mike Leonetti came to me back in the 90s, he said, Darryl, I'd love to do a Leaf book, comparison of that for kids, And I thought that'd be kind of cool to be a part of something like that. Didn't ask to get paid for it. And the story was around the 10-point game jersey. So all these years later, all these young kids, it was their bedtime storybook. I hadn't played the game for years, but I was their favorite player because they felt they knew me. But to me, that's all kind of who we are, part of Canadiana stuff that, hey, it's nice to be a part of. And again, we're fortunate that the game is so popular now that we can still be a part of it the way we are.
When you reflect on it, what's your first and last thought about the 10-point night?
We're still celebrating it the way we are today. I said earlier, and I thought Mario and Wayne would be the two guys. I mean, they were getting 250 points a season. The fact that they haven't, and you know what, people can say, the game has changed. It has somewhat, but the guys that played before me in that era, the Teeter Kennedys and the Dave Keons, the Rocket Richards, it was all a tough game back then, as it was with us in the 70s and 80s. The fact that the game is growing the way it is worldwide, all the North American players who are in the National Hockey League, the best league in the world, don't underestimate, like some people say, well, you got it in the 70s against the weak goalie. Hey, how often were 10 goals ever scored by one? With any weak goalie, it just happened to me, and the stars were all aligned. And the fact that it's still here today, the fact that it's in a Leaf uniform means a lot too. Obviously, we know the power of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they mean to the world of hockey. So yeah, it's all great. It's all great stuff.
This has been wonderful. Really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us and walk us down memory lane. All the best and enjoy every moment of it.
Say hello to Jen, eh? I miss her.
I will.
Her. He was just a rookie back when I started in the day, but
but being able to see you on PEI a couple of years ago was a real thrill. Being able to reconnect again as well. And Tiger, same thing. Those trips to Afghanistan.
Make sure you give Dave a hug for us because I think he needs a hug.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
You're the best, buddy.
Oh, he's still there?
Yeah,
okay.
Anytime.
Yeah, you're a good man, Dave Williams. You're a good man.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
You're lost in what happened that night. And boy, was that not amazing. Like Tiger coming over, sitting down. Those two being buddies 55 years after they first started playing together, that gives me such hope for the future. That's inspiring.
There was one thing, and I actually was going to bring it up before the end, and I kind of got blown away with Tiger talking. Darryl actually listened to the show.
Yeah.
Darryl says, well, you guys were talking about this last week. Holy smokes. Darryl Sittler's a subscriber. I mean,
you know, we should do that. We that should turn into a promo.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Well,
if Darryl listens,
I'll tell you what.
Why aren't you?
I'll talk to the promo department and we'll see what we can do.
It's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Sittler listens. Shouldn't you?
Well, I don't think it's as good as our other slogan, which is, every time somebody says 100%, I hear 100%, people saying yes or no, 100%. And all I do is chime in hockey. That's all I do. So
I thought you were going to say shit happens.
That's on the back of the t-shirt.
Oh, that makes sense. Going into that night.
Yeah.
Boston was rolling.
Yes.
And Toronto was struggling. And there was part of a stretch in which Boston lost one game in 16. And they gave up the 11 goals to Toronto and 10 points to Darryl Sittler. And Toronto was not going in a good way. It really did come out of nowhere.
Well, and as Darryl talked about, Harold was not shy about going public and saying he needed a center for Lanny and Errol. And so there was a lot of scuttlebutt in town about what was really going on with the Maple Leafs. As Harold wanted, he wanted a headline every day. And usually it wasn't necessarily positive. He just wanted a headline, just spell my name right. So for Sittler to do this, it was just a tremendous positive milestone for the hockey club at a time when they really needed it. I also, when you talk about how good the Boston Bruins were, and by the way, Don Cherry was a coach of that team in 76, and this was 2 days after, February 7th. This was 2 days after Don's birthday. So this was hardly a birthday present, because Don loved being on Saturday nights in Canada. That was also, I think, the Boston Bruin team that had 11 20-goal scorers. They were a really, really prolific hockey club. So it
should have been Boston putting up the 11 goals,
right? Oh yeah, but the issue that Boston had was goaltending, and as we talked about it with Darryl, that was resolved with the return of Jerry Cheevers that weekend. He just wouldn't play that weekend. That's all.
Gore Selleck wrote a book about working under Harold Ballard. It's unbelievable if you can find it somewhere. Hockey Heartache and how it just, you will not believe that those stories actually happened, but they did. So if you can pick that up somewhere, you know it a little more intimately. But for those that hear about Harold Ballard and the stories, that's a great way to lean into some of the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs during that era. Darryl, emotional at times. Certainly, Tiger was when he joined us for a little bit, and Darryl shared a lot more than just that 10-point night. He walked through a lot of his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. That wasn't always smooth.
But that was really, I mean, at a certain point, that team survived. It survived. It didn't thrive. It survived. When you consider the time that Jim Gregory was the manager with Red Kelly as the coach, and then Roger, and then we didn't even get into the paper bag with Roger Nielsen and.
Explain that to people.
Well, Harold fired Roger Nielsen and then couldn't find a coach to take over. So he said, I'm going to rehire you, Roger, but you have to wear a paper bag to walk out to the bench before the game starts. And Roger was actually considering it until one of his best friends who was on his coaching staff said, if you do that, that's the stupidest thing you've ever done. And the great memory of that night for me was again, another night I was in the building, was the Philadelphia Flyers they were playing. And Roger came out late to create the drama of who was coaching the Maple Leafs, because there was no coach behind the bench just after the anthem. And so Roger walks out. There's a standing ovation, and Bobby Clarke is taking the faceoff for the Flyers. And Clarke realizes the moment. And if you watch the video of that night, Clarke backs off the faceoff circle and does not put his stick down. I think it's with Darryl, but does not put his stick down and waits for the ovation to finish before he glides back into the faceoff circle and then drop the puck to start the game.
Can you imagine anything coming close to that now?
Well, I don't know. We keep seeing the Florida-Tampa games that are getting back to old-time hockey.
No, but the drama of general manager, coach, and Roger leaned into it a little bit.
I don't. Roger loved coaching so much he would have done anything to coach.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a question of leaning into it. I think Roger would have said, well, I will sacrifice anything, even my own pride, to be the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what he would have done.
Because there's 99% people wouldn't have even gone along with it, never mind building up the drama coming out late.
Right. A lot of guys wouldn't.
That Florida-Tampa game, I'll admit it, I was wrong. I thought it was going to be a peaceful encounter. There was 4 different stoppages in which 4 or more players were penalized. Over 100 penalty minutes.
Brandon Hagel, Matthew Tkachuk. I guess we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Next time, right? And then what do you make of Seth Jarvis replacing Braden Point?
I'm a fan of Seth Jarvis. I think he.
Well, you're
he
a Manitoba guy.
options.
You're a Manitoba guy. So.
I am. So is he. We've talked about that together. But I think he gives you a bunch of different elements and enthusiasm. He plays in a market that doesn't get exposure, but he's a game changer, or can be a game changer. And I think he, after last year, he deserved to be back on this team. He was sidelined by injury, and I'm happy for him.
I'm happy for anybody that gets to go to Milan.
I think he deserves it, so that's a better way to say it.
Okay. I would have liked to seen Zach Hyman there. I think it would have been, I would have loved to have seen a line with McDavid, Hyman, and Celebrini. That to me would have been fascinating to watch. Mm-hmm. I think that Zach Hyman brings a work ethic to the team, to the Oilers, and would bring it to Canada.
That's the combination that it
was like Sydney with Chris Kunitz.
Yeah.
Well, it's Sydney with Chris Kunitz in 2014, right? Yeah. That's why they took him. But Zach's been one of the best goal scorers in the game for the last 2 months. Mm-hmm. So I would have liked to have seen Zach there. But this team, if they win, nobody should complain. But if they hit a bump in the road, there's going to be lots of complaints about certain situations.
Well, goaltending is the big question mark, and Logan Thompson did return and made a start and won in his final appearance before the Olympic Games.
Yes, he looked actually pretty good. I watched that game a lot, and I thought he played very, very well. On the other side now, you do have to wonder what's going on and what will happen, not in Italy, but in North America, with teams that the expectations were very high. I do wonder what's going to happen in Edmonton. They're not playing very well. Leon,
they're the saddest, most depressed second place team that I can remember.
Second place is relative when you consider the weakness of the division.
They're second place.
Yeah, but they're not happy. And I can assure you there's a lot of people in the organization that aren't happy. So you wonder, there are rumblings that Paul Coffey might be coming back to coach the defense. I'm that hasn't been confirmed, but there are rumblings. You wonder about New Jersey. What's going on in New Jersey? It is, and again, no Jack Hughes on Thursday night, so that doesn't help them. But they
Did you get that from Tate McRae?
What's that?
His romantic.
Are they dating?
They've been seen out a couple of times.
Where is
she
that
did
on?
an Olympic video for supporting USA, and she's taken some heat.
No, she didn't. Wrong. She supported NBC. She got paid money to do it for NBC.
Taking heat for it, which is wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think you have to understand that. I mean, with the relationship between Canada and the United States right now, I can understand people being a little upset. I do. I can understand.
There's a bunch of teams that are in right now that were out last year, and which means there's teams that were in.
So right now, if the playoffs start today, there's 8 new teams. 8
that's
different teams.
A lot of flip over.
And 5 of them are in the East, Daren. 5 new teams in the East. Now, some of them are teams that have been to the playoffs a lot in the last 2 decades, like Pittsburgh. But
Pittsburgh, Detroit, Buffalo, and Boston are all in right now.
Yeah, it's impressive. It really is that they've been able to do it. I think that's but you wonder about Toronto. Can Toronto turn it around? Can Toronto take this time and find a way to fix their woes? Some would say they don't have any woes right now based on their last road trip. But the previous homestand didn't help, so I think that there'll be some consternation and some discussion in the next 2.5 weeks what's going on with the Maple Leafs. Same thing in Winnipeg. What's going to happen in Winnipeg? They're 11 points out right now. That's going to be a real challenge for Kevin and Mark to decide what they want to do with the hockey club, if anything, or is this just a blip for a team that's actually a pretty good hockey club? So it's fascinating stuff, really.
In the post-expansion era, we're looking at a first where a President's Trophy winner and the Stanley Cup champion miss the playoffs the next year, and it's 2 different teams in the Florida Panthers and the Winnipeg Jets.
That hasn't happened since '67.
I haven't checked it, but no, it hasn't happened.
I think you should check that. I was actually I wondered that one night on radio in Winnipeg, and I got told that
who was it?
Los Angeles and Chicago in 2014.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I don't have that.
It would be the second time then. It's still historic.
It does have a little bit.
I wasn't looking it up. To be quite honest, I'm so excited to be going into the Olympic break. I wasn't looking it up.
Yeah. Olympic break's going to be good. We're going to have some fun next week. We're going to start talking hockey every day for 2 weeks.
Off the Olympic schedule and playing off of what's going to happen. Do you have a handle on how the tournament might play out?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think there are 5 teams that can win the gold medal. I really do.
5 teams winning the gold medal. That takes you to probably 8, 9 that could medal. If you keep that wide of a
medal is not a verb. Medal is not a verb.
But you could medal. Like you win.
We have created gold. That. We have created that. But
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think that there's probably 2 more teams. I think you could get to 7 that have a chance to be in the top 3, but I think that would be hard. But I do think, United States, Canada, Sweden, Finland, Czechia, I think, they all have quality goaltending. If one of those goaltenders gets hot, watch out. I hearken back to, and we talked about this before, I hearken back to 1998. We all thought this was a no-brainer. Canada, United States, gold medal in Nagano, Japan. And, Canada was coming off being disappointed at the World Cup. The Americans had won the World Cup. And here comes Dom Hasek and the Czech Republic. And it was crazy.
And if Canada does stumble in their first game against Czechia, don't panic, because in 2002 and in 2010, There was early season struggles, and they switched goaltenders, and away they went. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you who you're starting in goal for game one. We'll save that.
I'll tell you.
No, I told you. But
I'll save that till next week. I'm very confident that they will go in a certain direction. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the weekend of downtime and recharge and get ready for the Olympic tournament. And for everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Darryl Sittler on 100% Hockey with Millard and
David Williams. Darryl Sittler and David Williams.
And Tigger.